Hi, it's Rich McLean with a message for the Footscray police, or the police. It's 7th of June. There's going to be a rule soon that VCAT moved me on from my house. That's because the police will enforce it. However, I'm character assassinated, and there's a design, an intelligent design, in order to forsake me, and everyone has, and to maim me and render me penniless and a vagrant. And this is the story of why it's unethical for you to even remove me from my house. It's gone to the top. Now, the evidence that I'll show you, if you'll give me the opportunity, which you never have, is that goes to the top. So the Office of Prime Minister and Cabinet at first refused my freedom of information because it was voluminous and complex, and now they've said I don't exist. That is because of a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, and that is because my former partner's withholding $500,000 from me, which you won't intervene in. You won't intervene in him stealing my car. You won't intervene in my phone being stolen. You won't intervene in corruption. And you're all hands are tied because IBAC, I'm a failed whistleblower. I'm also a failed whistleblower at ASIC, APRA, and the Commonwealth Ombudsman. This is all evidence on killhim.info. I also have the Australian Human Rights Commission. They free-kicked a $1 million case to the other team, and that is inequitable and out of step with their neutral approach to conciliation. I lost there. Now, HCF have written to me today. They describe the reason I was framed in my illness from work as they've investigated it and now they've banned me. Now, it was resting with APRA. That's 75 grand. It was resting with APRA. Australian Financial Complaints Authority, AFCA. But they've banned me. Now, AFCA have 4 weeks to determine a vulnerable person's determinations before they only have 4 weeks, and they've got to be determined. Mine took over a year and a half. They, with Steve and Dr. Whitaker's lawyer, Dr. Ball, who's a powerful, influential, key stakeholder in Australian politics, who influences government policy and informs them, framed me for many years, and it ended up at AFCA, and they were setting me up to fail. Now, I knew this, and I became aware of it about the time I left work, and HCF have reassured their position and banned me, knowing full well that AFCA's banned me. So AFCA banned me, I'm not allowed to talk to them, and now the delay, defer, deny model has happened for now 16 months since I fatally wounded myself within a hospital, which I cannot get justice for, or the oppression that led me there of government systemic abuse and victimisation. And that is because the CEO, Dave Stevenson, knows full well that no one has my back. I'm a forsaken human being, and the movement has exploited existing prejudices that are in people already, like drugs or gay or whatever they want to label them with, mental illness, and now the brain injury, and it exploits people to turn them against me. Now, what was I saying? I can't remember. This is because of the injury I have. Oh, David Stevenson. He knows I'm a failed whistleblower at the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman condoned that conspiracy to murder as nothing to see. And in fact, the apology from the hospital, which Ben Calder, the Victorian Ombudsman, said was sufficient, said that they apologise for returning a dirty, snapped toilet brush in my clean clothes back to the hospital, where they sewed me up and filled me up with blood, because they apologised not because of the detriment, not because of the malpractice, not because of the misdiagnosis, not because of the system oppressing me, not because of the police backing it up, not because of the CAT team not listening to me. It was a fucking setup. And they apologised to me for returning a broken toilet brush because it's not their policy to give away hospital property. And that's the kind of audacity in which this movement holds, with absolute immunity from the law. Now, there's another law. It's the Charter of Human Rights, ratified by the government in 2008 for people with a disability. It says we must have a home. We must have food and medicine. I have cancer for 5 months now. No one's seen to that. I'm scapegoated, and I'm oppressed, and I'm forsaken. And all I want is a simple place to exist while I live the rest of my life and give back to people. I've already decided that I've made a trust fund, and as I have demonstrated over 25 years that I'm an advocate of the marginalised and the oppressed and different sexualities and ages, and against exploitation and tyranny, that it will go to people who are suffering that either before I die or after I die. Those people that held me in opposition to the Charter of Human Rights, because you literally can't get a brain damaged, mentally ill man who has no support and move him onto the streets when the government is the one responsible for oppressing you, killing you, and then covering it up, and then continuing to aid and abet by your death by exploiting your friends and family and by scapegoating you and heinously character assassinating and victimising you. And the people that were responsible for this will be held to account in history, and that money, the detriment, which the financial minister and the police and the Office of Prime Minister and Cabinet refuse to acknowledge, will be collected, and it will be channeled into that fund, and I will appoint the politics of that to be served, so that after I die, end stage capitalism in Australia at the end of the Anthropocene, that in a insect apocalypse and a dying world, that the ones who exist after me will be saved from more suffering than they need to suffer from, because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, which is what this is. I refuse to be moved on by a law from VCAT, and I've failed 2 VCAT cases. When you've got another law, and the police backing it up, when I can't report crime to police. See the irony? Therefore, I'm making a stronghold. Sorry, Hung Ho, his name is. I know, it's like a joke, isn't it? He's that landlord. He knows of this oppression. He knows of the death. He knows of the cover-up. He knows that I lived in abject poverty that was designed by the government intelligently for 16 months. I've lost weight. Like I've barely had food. Poor Crystal, she needs a chicken dinner too, and barely anyone has supported me. But because they've been libel and slander. Have called me an extortionist by Mr. Ball, those cases of the doctor are still live. They're still live. I can still make a complaint to that. It is absolutely correct, right, and just. But I'm framed from getting a lawyer, going to the police, or being a whistleblower. And that is an abhorrent way to victimise someone, and it is acting in congruence with covering up the oppression which comes from mental health agencies who, sorry, I shouldn't have mocked other people, who only identify illness and not a holistic being with human rights, dignity, respect, and who is deserving of food, medication, health, and value. That is in opposition to NDIA Minister Reynolds or Health Minister Greg Hunt or a host of other people, Social Services Minister, everyone. There is an intelligent design to absolutely destroy and kill me. And it already has 16 months ago, and then it was covered up. I refuse to leave this house before you acknowledge the crimes. That is, my prosecution only needs to prove that 3 or more people acted in congruence, either via omission or by doing something that perverted the course of justice. I am a multi-millionaire, and I don't even want it. All I want is a life free from death threats at my door, which you won't do anything about. I want my privileges paid. But work cover would be in it, and a really easy one. Because, I called Joe Kelly today, the NDIA workplace people. She refused to talk to me. That's evidence enough in itself. I've complained to the Attorney General about corruption at Comcare, at the AAT, at other agencies, Australian Human Rights Centre, Comcare, others, AFCA. She refuses to intervene. She decides to send me, exploitatively and victimisingly, to the SANE helpline. My book was SANE's Book of the Year, and I'd already spoken to Jack Heath, who said I should move on. So, with that amount of evidence, which is clearly there on killhim.info, I want an immediate police response into this injustice and this deficiency that government agents have caused, and that the millions and millions of dollars that I'm owed. For starters, the case before the AAT, I don't have a legal representative. They will walk all over me, gaslight, reject. There are systems in place that exploit light workers like me. And I don't want the money. But now that I've reported the crime, and that I'm going to tip 3 litres, I know I got 5 actually, of LSD into Sylvan Reservoir, and I've had that all ready to go, unless you act on this injustice. In that, if the world's going to make me trip, I'm going to make you all trip. 5 litres of LSD is quite enough to intoxicate a lot of people. And, now that I've facetiously and quite innocently threatened that, the federal police have to listen to this injustice, and they have to acknowledge that I've proven beyond reasonable doubt that I can't report crime to the police, that I am framed, that there is a movement to persecute me, that it's killed me, and then the same government covered it up. It goes right to the head honchos, and I am a happy man. I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm alive. I'm happy with my dog. If someone hurts my dog, I will slit their throat. But apart from that, I'm just going to, fasting is a real skill, I think. And I'm just going to take advantage of it. We're hungry, we're homeless, and a whole lot of stigma, prejudice, and discrimination has been given to me over my whole life, and I object to it. And now that I've explained to you the detriment it's caused in a moderate average dollar amount, and that it's actually murdered me and then it's been covered up. And the audacious fucking response from the hospital, that the apology was to not give away hospital property of a broken toilet brush. Are you joking me? That's the immunity with which these organisations, institutions, and people exploit, victimise, and vilify me. And it's against the law. And that, police, is your remit. And it's also your remit as a public service official to not act outside the Charter of Human Rights of people with a disability. And that states we must have a home, medication, not exploited, not discriminated against, not arbitrarily deprived life, and have equal and access to the law and access to litigation, until you provide, as the police, or as the Law Institute, or as a society, or as CAID, as support worker, anyone, until someone crosses the floor, I won't be leaving this house. And if someone comes to this house to forcibly remove me, death will occur. Your death. Okay, you'll have to go and work. Get to work, boys and girls. Got work to do. Protecting the divine Dr. Rich. Okay. Cheers.